Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. Let's take a couple letters from listeners on this topic. The first one responding to a point that Bill raised. Larry says, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Democrats have made a big issue out of the whistleblowers' criticisms of the investigation happening during the Trump administration." And Kim, I wonder if you could respond to that. It is being raised in the debate that David Weiss was an appointee under President Trump.
Yes, there is a lot of talk about the fact that this started under Donald Trump, meaning that Donald Trump named David Weiss to be the attorney in this particular case. And in fact, I believe that it was Bill Barr who then tagged David Weiss to look into the Hunter thing. But my understanding is that this has dragged on now for years and years. I think he's been investigating for 4 and 5 years. And as we can see from all of this correspondence, there seemed to be a real reluctance to proceed and do anything on the case, and that they seemed, in fact, to be bowing to some of the threats that are being thrown by Hunter Biden's legal team. So I think it's hard to argue that politics from a Republican side is at play here. I would argue, when I look at David Weiss and I try to make sense of this, if you look at this is a guy who really strikes me as somebody who is like a long-term DC prosecutor. He's been in and out of office many times, has clearly taken great pains to have good relations with both the Republican side and the Democratic side, even though folks point out that he supposedly is Republican. He strikes me more as a DC player, as it were, somebody who wants to be able to serve regardless of what administration is there, and therefore perhaps unwilling to actually take on much controversy. And, I think that explains more the long time that it took to get to the end of this case and a lot of the shenanigans that appear to have gone on in the office. It just really comes across as somebody who's reluctant to take a strong stance. One other thing I would point out, too, this came out from both of the IRS whistleblowers. Both of them really talked a lot in their testimony about how the Delaware Attorney's Office is very small, doesn't have a lot of experts on staff, and I think the word that Gary Shapley used, or at least one of them, was junior league. Just not an outfit that kind of was prepared to handle high levels of tax fraud, etc. That might have also played a role in the bumbling of this case.
Let's also hear from Craig, who calls himself an average dude with a degree in mechanical engineering. He sounds like a disillusioned Trump voter, if I can characterize it that way. He says his knowledge of the law is pretty much limited to the many speeding tickets I've gotten, which I pony up and pay. Everything that's going on here at the pinnacle of the legal system with the Bidens confirms my angst that the system is basically rigged against chumps like my wife and me who put our kids through college and pay our taxes regularly and on time. What losers and chumps we are compared to these privileged folks. And Bill, I wonder if the Bidens are underrating the political salience of this issue. If we get into a general election, we don't know who the Republican candidate will be. But it does strike me as something that whoever that Republican nominee is going to hit and make an argument that there's a two-tiered justice system here, and that might be persuasive to some voters.
I think that's why the whole charge against David Weiss is that he was helping to bury the charges. Forget the plea deal. The real big favor to the Bidens was that he let the statute of limitations lapse on the really serious charges from 2014-15 involving Burisma and so forth. And Andrew McCarthy, a former federal prosecutor, points out that a lot of the other charges are set to expire too if he doesn't charge soon. So I think that's a worry. Already, Joe Biden's in trouble for not telling the truth. In the debates, I think the second debate against Donald Trump, Hunter was raised many times by Donald Trump. And Joe Biden said categorically that there was no truth to the idea that his family got money from China. And now we know that's not true. There's a whole host of those statements that will come back to haunt him in a debate if the Republican is clever enough to use them.
Kim, where do you suppose the investigation by House Republicans into this issue goes from here? There's been news in the last day or so that there are new subpoenas that have been issued by the House. Who are we expecting to hear from next? And I guess I would say that one person that I would like to hear from is the staff on David Weiss's team in Delaware, who are doing these negotiations with the Hunter Biden defense team, and see what they have to say about whether they thought that was impartial justice. And for that matter, the senior fellow at DOJ who came in for this meeting with Weiss and Clark as well.
Well, we're going to at least hear from a few people. The subpoenas went out yesterday to 4 individuals. They were issued by the House Judiciary Committee and the House Ways and Means Committee. And remember, this is a very important point in the Weiss narrative. Gary Shapley, one of the whistleblowers, claimed that there was this meeting in which Weiss said to the room that his hands were tied in terms of bringing felony charges against Hunter Biden, because to do so, he would need the cooperation of the Washington, D.C. attorney who had turned him down, and moreover, that he had asked for and been denied special counsel status. Now, this matters because both Weiss and Attorney General Merrick Garland have strongly disputed this, claimed that he didn't ask for special counsel authority. They've been a little bit more quiet on whether or not he was blocked with cooperation from the other attorneys, but they certainly claimed he wasn't stymied from becoming a special counsel earlier. So these subpoenas have gone to the other people that were supposedly in the room during that meeting. That includes 2 FBI agents and I believe 2 other IRS agents. So that's going to matter. And I agree with you entirely. I'd really love to have Leslie Wolf come in to have an interview, the woman who supposedly came up with the no charge deal in the beginning and stymied some of this investigation. Some of the other deputies. The problem I think that Republicans have created for themselves is in calling for a special counsel, which Merrick Garland has now given them, it's going to be even easier for the Department of Justice to deny these people who they will claim are part of an ongoing investigation from going in to testify. And indeed, I would just note this is why the subpoenas had to go out yesterday, because the committee chairs noted that the Department of Justice had so far refused to allow those 4 individuals to voluntarily come and comply with the request to interview.
Thank you, Kim and Bill. Thank you all for listening. You can email us at pwpodcast@wsj.com. If you like the show, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Potomac Watch.